Hello, welcome to the channel Y Stories. Enjoy watching.
The door of the maternity hospital's reception room swung open, and a young gypsy woman entered. Her hair, as black as coal, was gathered back into a messy, thick braid. Her dark eyes held a frozen expression of suffering. She walked unsteadily towards the administrator's desk. In one hand, the woman carried a small travel bag. Suddenly, a grimace of pain contorted her beautiful face. She clasped her enormous belly and let out a prolonged scream. "Oh my God, it aches so much." "Ma'am." A nurse rushed to her side. "Are you having contractions?" "Hey, help!" she shouted. "This woman is in labor." She helped the woman, who was on the verge of collapsing, and took the bag from her. After enduring the contractions, the woman managed to force a smile. Medical staff was already rushing to help. "Careful," the midwife said to the nurses as she placed the pregnant woman on a stretcher. "Christina, inform Ignacio that we have a difficult labor. Ask him to call an anesthesiologist, just in case," she said, and the procession hurried into the delivery room. "All right, Eleonora," the receptionist girl responded and picked up the phone. Eleonora anxiously monitored the woman's condition. "It's going to be all right, dear," she reassured, gently taking her hand and checking her pulse. The woman's forehead became covered in sweat, and a shiver ran through her body. She let out another prolonged scream, clutching the edges of the stretcher with her hands. "To the birth room, quickly," Eleonora ordered. She herself rushed to change clothes and wash her hands. The water broke. "Come on, dear, push," she said, looking at the laboring woman over her medical mask. "What's your name?" "Rosalia," the woman replied, struggling to catch her breath. "Who are you expecting, a boy or a girl?" "A girl." A grimace of pain distorted her face. "I can't take it anymore," she screamed, barely catching her breath after another contraction. "You can do it," the midwife said sternly. "Come on, one more time." "That's it, well done. You're doing great. Push a little more. Remember to breathe, take deep breaths." The cry of a newborn baby filled the delivery room. "Congratulations." Eleonora smiled at the woman, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Here she is, your little daughter. Hey, be careful," she suddenly shouted, handing the baby to the nurses. Eleonora, her blood pressure dropped, the nurse reported anxiously. "Quick, put the dropper. Transfer her to the intensive care unit." The next morning, Eleonora visited the sick woman. She lay there with closed eyes, her face devoid of any color. "She's very weak," the duty nurse whispered. "I'm afraid she won't make it." "What's your name?" Eleonora suddenly heard a quiet voice. "Stay quiet, don't waste your breath." Eleonora leaned closer to the woman. "Tell me, what's your name?" the sick woman stubbornly asked. "Eleonora." "Swear on your mother's life that you'll take care of my daughter when I'm gone." The eyes of the sick woman burned with a feverish fire. She persistently tried to catch Eleonora's gaze. "Don't talk nonsense," Eleonora said, not very confidently. "You'll recover." "I won't survive," the woman wearily remarked. "I'm begging you in the name of Christ, don't abandon her on the streets, don't let her end up in an orphanage." She closed her eyes, gathering her last bit of strength. "Promise me, I'm begging you." "She can't go to an orphanage, she'll perish there." "How can I promise you that?" the midwife asked, astonished. "No one will give me someone else's child. We're not related. You can ask the chief physician, but please don't leave my daughter. Swear that you'll do everything in your power." "All right," Eleonora gave in. She thought to herself, "It's nothing for me to make a promise. Whether I fulfill it or not is another question." "Thank you," the sick woman whispered barely audibly. She closed her eyes. "I had a bag with me," the woman spoke again. "When my daughter grows up, please give her." Suddenly, she grasped Eleonora's hand with force, and her hand was cold, with veins visible through her thin skin. Remember you promised me. I can see that you're a good person, you won't deceive me. I don't have much time left. Don't even think about death, you have such a beautiful daughter now. You're still young. Fight, cling to life. Think about your little girl, it will give you strength. A sad half-smile touched the young woman's lips, tears filled her eyes. She looked at Eleanor guiltily and released her hand. Eleanor saw how the gypsy woman's gaze grew dim, she closed her eyes and fell silent. Her face stretched, reflecting a serene tranquility. Why are you just standing there and doing nothing? The nurse cried out. Do something. She's dying. No one can help her now. Eleanor wiped away an uninvited tear. She had witnessed the deaths of patients before, but this dark-haired beauty somehow touched her heart. I wonder what happened to her. Where did she come from? No one really knows anything about her. We need to look for documents. What about her belongings? Eleanor suddenly asked. They're in the wardrobe. Where else? The nurse shrugged, removing the dropper from the woman's vein. Will you stay here? I'll call the attending physician. Yes, please go. I'll stay with her. Eleonora observed the gypsy woman. So young, echoed in her mind. Why is she alone? I thought the whole camp would come with her, that's always how it is with them. But no one is looking for her, it's all so strange. Can we take her now? 2 male nurses entered the room. Eleonora nodded silently, stepping aside. They loaded the woman's body onto a stretcher and took her away. Eleonora set off to search for the woman's bag. She didn't have any documents in her bag, nothing of value, the nurse said, handing her a small travel bag. Just some colorful rags and a few supplies. We took the supplies, but here's the rest. We know her name is Rosalia, but we don't know where she's from. No one asked her anything? No, maybe she's just a traveler, the nurse speculated. Perhaps, Eleonora mused. In the inner pocket of the bag, she felt a small bundle, opened it, and pulled out a golden chain with a pendant. What an unusual piece of jewelry, she remarked. Oh, we didn't even notice it. The nurse exclaimed, examining the unique pendant with curiosity. It was bulky, with a large garnet stone at the center. Dark red, like congealed blood. The intricate cut featured delicate golden patterns dotted with diamonds. Wow! It must be incredibly valuable, the nurse said with envy. Not only that, but it's also antique, Eleonora added. Eleonora! Suddenly, a woman called out, and Eleonora turned around. I forgot to give you this letter. What letter? Eleonora was surprised. From whom? The gypsy woman asked me to give it to you when she's gone. It's intriguing. Read it right away. The administrative assistant forgot about her work and became absorbed in the situation. Eleonora didn't reply, she started reading. My dear little daughter, she murmured, looking through the lines. As Eleonora read further, her expression changed dramatically. What? What's in there? Why are you crying? The astonished administrative assistant asked, seeing Eleonora discreetly wiping away tears. If only you knew. She sobbed. If only you knew. What was there? Why are you crying? Eleonora burst into tears. I can't tell you, it's not my secret. Can I take Rosalia's belongings? She asked through sobs. Go ahead, the nurse replied, looking puzzled. We'll just throw them away in a month if no one claims them. I'm just asking you, please don't tell anyone that I took them. All right, the girl replied, bewildered, looking at Eleonora. And what if someone asks? No one. Please. The woman pleaded. Well, fine, the nurse shrugged, perplexed. Eleonora carefully put the letter and pendant into an envelope and headed decisively towards the chief doctor's office. Teodora, I want to adopt this girl. What girl? Teodora exclaimed, looking up from her documents. Well, this gypsy girl. Why do you want her? Theodora frowned. And what if someone from their camp demands the child back? Don't say that I took her. Just say that the girl also passed away. Do you realize what you're saying? What are you pushing me into? I want to give the child a home. Is that so wrong? But how will you arrange the necessary documents for her? You have to go through the guardianship authorities, other institutions. That's my concern now. All right, the chief doctor shrugged. Well, at least wait until she's examined. What if she's ill? The child is healthy, the woman stated confidently. I assisted in the delivery myself. And have you thought about how your husband will react to her? Don't worry, he'll be happy. I can see that you've already made up your mind. Eleonora nodded. What should I do with you? Go ahead and arrange it, the chief doctor sighed. But if everything unravels, we'll both be in trouble, you understand that. Don't worry, I'll handle everything. An hour later, Eleonora was already home. Darling, she called out joyfully as she entered the apartment. Look who we have here. Who is this? Valerio looked astonished at his wife, who was holding a baby in her arms. Meet her, Daddy. It's our daughter, Eleonora lovingly said and placed the baby in her husband's hands. Are you out of your mind? Where did you take her? Did you steal her? I'll explain everything to you right now, but I urgently need to go to the store to buy everything she needs. Can you spend some time with her? She's sleeping anyway, I'll be quick. How do you imagine all this? Valerio exclaimed in horror, looking at the little girl. Or you can go, I'll make a list. You can buy everything that's needed. All right, I'll stay, the man reluctantly agreed. But first, explain to me, where did you get her? Eleonora laid the baby on the bed in the bedroom, carefully closed the door, and returned to her husband in the living room. She's the daughter of a gypsy woman. She died immediately after giving birth. You're completely crazy, her husband shouted. Do you realize what her relatives will do to us if they find out we took the child? No one will find out, Eleonora assured him. All this time she was in the hospital, no one claimed her. I don't know why. Rosalia didn't have a chance to tell us anything about herself, I only know her name. And I. The woman paused. I promised her that I would take the child. I have to save this baby, you understand? She's in danger. I made a promise. There's something else, but I'll tell you about it later. I don't understand, Valerio seethed with anger. He paced irritably around the room. Why do you need this child? You said she's in danger? That means we'll be at risk too. Valerio, Eleonora approached him, looked into his eyes, hugged him, and tried to calm him down. God didn't give us our own children, and now we have a chance to become a real family. We'll leave here. Sell everything and leave. And no one will ever know that we've adopted the child. No one will find her. Would you let anything happen to this little one? I can't believe you decided to do it. Valerio protested. And how will we process the documents without any valid reasons? Without waiting in line? Do you know how many people dream of adopting a child from an orphanage? And why her specifically? Let's take another baby, not this gypsy girl. Look at us, do we look like her? Yes, anyone will understand that she's adopted. For nearly 15 years, Eleonora sat down on the couch. I have been fostering other people's children. You can't imagine the torment, seeing smiles on the happy faces of young mothers, holding other people's children in your arms, and not being able to give birth to your own. This girl, she's our salvation. Let's go. She stood up, took her husband's hand, and led him to the bedroom. Just look at her, she whispered. What a beauty. I couldn't refuse her mother, we have to take her in. I promised a dying woman. But what if we can't get used to her, love her like our own? I'm sure, the woman lovingly looked at her husband, we will be good parents. Look how tiny she is. Fate has placed this child in our hands. We will love her, and one day we will hear her say Mom and Dad. Isn't that happiness? But how will we fix the documents? I will take care of that issue. There's a woman working at the guardianship office. I assisted her during childbirth. She will help. And then we'll leave. You want to abandon everything here? Yes, we'll leave and start anew, the three of us. Are you willing? You'll be a crazy mother. Valerio smiled and hugged his wife. I already love this little one, and you will too, for sure. For you, I'm ready to do anything. Even adopt a gypsy girl. But at least you could have consulted with me. To bring a stranger's child into our home just like that. I knew you wouldn't object. She kissed her husband. We have so much untapped parental love within us that it will more than suffice for this little one. Believe me, she didn't just appear in our lives by chance. Let's not refuse the happiness that is begging to be ours. The next day, the young parents took action. Valerio put the apartment up for sale, and Eleonora went to the guardianship authorities. The former patient, hesitating a little, agreed to help. You understand that I could get into trouble? I do, Eleonora looked at her apologetically. If the deception is revealed, I will take full responsibility. But no one will ever think to search for a gypsy girl. In a month, they won't even remember her at the maternity ward. The chief physician knows she's on my side. I assure you, there's nothing to be afraid of. All right, the woman relented. The girl got lucky, she ended up in good hands. Eleonora went to work. Hello, she greeted the chief physician and submitted her resignation letter. Here, I'm requesting to be dismissed. What's this? The woman was taken aback. I didn't expect this. I didn't think you'd have to quit. Maybe you'll change your mind? No. It's done. We're already selling the apartment. We haven't decided where we'll move yet, but one thing is certain, we won't stay here. It's a small town, and I'm afraid rumors will spread. We won't escape trouble. We'll go somewhere where no one knows us, start everything from scratch. It's a pity, of course, to lose such a valuable employee, but I understand you. I won't try to dissuade you, you know what you're doing. If things don't work out in the new place, come back, I'll always welcome you with joy. And the woman hesitated. I wish you happiness. You, more than anyone else, have earned the right to be called a mother. Eleonora bid a warm farewell to her colleagues and hurried home to her husband and daughter. A month later, they moved to their new place of residence. Blas, dear, come here. Chus called out to his friend, rising to greet him. What brought you here? I came to discuss some matters with you. Well, it seems things are going well for us, the homeowner remarked in surprise. Marta, serve our guests some coffee. I've been offered some excellent purebred horses. It would be a good investment for our business. Our children will be getting married soon, so we need to think about expanding. What do you think? I can't wait to call you my relative. Fidel was 15 when your daughter was born, and we decided to marry them. Why wait? We need to set a wedding date. Yes, brother, so much has happened since then. Blas grew melancholic. Her mother didn't live to see this bright day. You know I'm raising our daughter alone. She's still too young to get married. Let her finish school first. Modern children need education. Oh, come on. She'll be too old by then. Have you considered giving her to my son instead? Fidel dreams of having children, and it wouldn't hurt us to think about grandchildren. How could you even think of such a thing about me? Blas felt offended. Blas never goes back on his word. I know the laws. My Rosalia will marry someone I say. Don't doubt it, I've done everything for her without holding back. It's time for her to show gratitude to her father and obey his will. But why does she need education? A woman in the house should be a good homemaker. She won't have time to read books once she has children. You and I, Chus, have grown old and live by old laws. The modern youth values education. Don't tell me Rosalia is thinking of going to college. No, thank God, but I insist that she finishes school. Next year, we'll have the wedding. When our children marry, we'll unite, and we'll have a very strong business. I'm looking forward to that day. Bloss returned home, feeling satisfied. Daughter, he cheerfully announced, it's time to prepare for the wedding. You'll be 17 soon. Just a little more, and you'll become an overripe peach that no one wants to eat. He laughed at his own joke. Chus is in a hurry, and Fidel has been waiting for years. They're waiting for you to give them an heir. Dad, I don't want to marry Fidel. I don't even like him. SHH, girl. Her father scolded, furrowing his brow. You will marry him, and that's final. Don't you dare defy me. A father's word is law. You have no right to dictate my life. Rosalia boldly declared, her black eyes gleaming. These are all outdated prejudices. We have long lived by secular laws. We live by gypsy laws, and it will always be that way. I've spoiled you. If your mother were alive, she would have explained everything to you. We also married under those customs, so did our parents. If death hadn't taken her, we would still be together. Your marriage will strengthen our position. No one will be able to undermine our business. You will do this for the sake of the family, for your brother, so that your children, my grandchildren, can live in prosperity. If you care so much about the business, then marry Fidel yourself, because I will never marry him. You're a disobedient girl. I will teach you a lesson. Dad. The girl ran up to her father, laughing. She hugged him and kissed him. Would you really hit your Rosalia? You're the best father in the world. Bloss helplessly lowered his hand. You will still have to get married, he sighed. I will get married, but only to the one I choose myself. Fine, Bloss paced angrily around the room. We'll revisit this conversation later when you've grown a bit wiser. Dad, Rosalia embraced her father and kissed him again. Today, there's a celebration in the village. Can I go to the disco tonight? Go ahead, just be careful. But remember, you're a gypsy girl, behave the way you should. In the evening, wearing a short dark blue dress, the girl headed to the party. Her long, black hair cascaded freely over her shoulders, resembling the wings of a raven. She adorned her chest with a string of pearls inherited from her mother, and matching earrings adorned her ears. Why did you dress like that? Her father asked, astonished. Isn't it inappropriate for a gypsy girl to wear such dresses? Dad, I don't want to look like a peacock among the others. I'm not going to a Romani festival. What about breaking free from these prejudices? You're quite rebellious, grumbled the dissatisfied father. Don't you dare come home late. Take Marta with you at least. Of course, Dad, Rosalia promised with a sweet smile. We're going together, don't worry. Slipping her purse over her shoulder, the girl headed to the park where her classmates were already waiting for her. Rosalia, her friend whispered mysteriously in the middle of the evening. There's a guy who can't take his eyes off you. I've been watching him for a while now. Where? Rosalia looked at the dance floor with surprise. I don't see anyone. Yes, there. He's standing and staring at you, tall and handsome. He has thick, light hair, and his eyes are as blue as the night sky. It's obvious that he's interested in you. Rosalia finally met eyes with the person Marta was talking about. She froze, getting lost in his bottomless gaze. She felt her heart first stop, then suddenly beat rapidly. The girl blushed. He's not bad, Marta continued, paying no attention to her friend's state. Too bad he's not a gypsy, otherwise I would have started a romance with him. At that moment, a slow melody began playing. The stranger separated himself from his group and headed straight toward the girls. Coming up to Rosalia, he extended his hand and said, "May I dance with you?" She looked around perplexedly at her friend, who nodded approvingly. Rosalia placed her delicate palm into his broad one. You're very beautiful. The young man said first. What's your name? Rosalia, she replied barely audibly. The proximity of the young man stirred her imagination. I'm Salvador. I came here to visit my grandmother, and I'm seeing you here for the first time. I rarely attend parties. My father is against this stuff. After all, I'm a gypsy. She provocatively glanced at her new acquaintance. Does it really matter if people like each other? Salvador calmly remarked. The girl remained silent. May I accompany you home after the party? Will your father get angry? I don't care what he says. Rosalia confidently declared. I can decide by myself who I want to hang out with. You're brave. I've heard that everything is strict in your community. We've been living a settled life for too long to adhere to primitive traditions. I consider them relics of the past, anyway. Rosalia? Marta asked suspiciously, looking at the young couple when Salvador brought his partner to her friend. It's time for us to go home. I promised your father to come back before midnight. You don't want to anger him, do you? Salvador is seeing me off, the girl announced. You can go, don't wait for me. Don't do this. Her friend warned. Bloss will be furious. Remember you have a fiancé? Fiancé? Salvador looked surprised at the girls. But you're still so young. Of course. Marta glanced disapprovingly at the young man. And I have a fiancé too. We've just been born, and our fathers have already decided whom we'll marry. So, handsome, you don't stand a chance unless, of course, you don't want to live. Marta, why are you doing this? Rosalia glared angrily at her friend. Go home alone. Salvador is seeing me off. Salvador? Don't worry. I know how a decent gypsy girl should behave. A gypsy girl should walk with a gypsy man. Your father won't be pleased by your choice. And what will Fidel say? Marta grumbled. Fidel is not yet my husband. Rosalia firmly replied. Marta huffed in offense and walked away. Shall we go? Rosalia looked at the young man questioningly. You're not scared, are you? No, I liked you right away. I would walk with you all night, but I understand that it would only bring trouble upon your beautiful dark-haired head. My father and brother love and understand me, she assured him. They walked side by side, happily chatting about various trivial matters. By the gate of their house, leaning against it with arms crossed, stood Rosalia's brother, Gerardo. Sister. He greeted them gloomily. Have you completely lost your own dignity? Father can't calm down, he's worried about you, and here you are wandering around with someone. Marta has been home for a while, and you're still not back. Why are you standing here? Rosalia asked. I'm waiting for you. The boy's tone didn't bode well. I want to see who's fooling you around. No one is fooling me around. Did Marta complain about me to you? She's a true friend. She told me to protect you from trouble. He stepped away from the gate. You better go on your way, buddy. He threatened, piercing the unexpected guest with eyes as black as Rosalia's. She'll never be yours. Who do you think you are to tell me what to do here? Rosalia flared up. Are you my father? I'm your older brother, and that says it all. Go home, I'll talk to your new acquaintance. Don't you dare touch him. Rosalia, Salvador calmly spoke up. Go, we'll handle this ourselves. Gerardo, if you even lay a finger on him, you are no longer my brother. Remember that. I won't touch him, calm down. I'll just explain a few things. Rosalia left, realizing that the men needed to resolve this issue themselves. Her presence wouldn't change anything, and Salvador would be put in an awkward position. Buddy, don't ruin her life, Gerardo began. We live by our own laws, you wouldn't understand. She'll never be yours, she has a betrothed among our people. It's better if you step aside right now and don't stir up trouble. Find a girl in the settlement or in the city. Why invite problems upon yourself? But what if I like her? If you like her, you should stop it. Leave, Gerardo angrily said. And stay away from my sister, or you'll regret it. I mean it. He closed the gate in front of a bewildered Salvador. Rosalia, Gerardo softly knocked on the door to his sister's room. May I come in? What do you want? The girl opened the door. Forget about that guy, her brother squeezed past her and said. He's not one of us. A gypsy girl must marry a gypsy man. You understand that it can't be any other way, right? But why? Rosalia exclaimed in despair. What's wrong with just going for a walk with him? Because you risk bringing shame to the family you have a fiancé. It's tradition. What do you know about men? You're seeing him for the first time in your life. We know better who suits you, said Rosalia's brother. Why do you and father decide my fate? Rosalia burst out. I don't love Fidel, and I will never love him. Nonsense. Her brother sternly replied. Your mother got married that way, our grandmother got married that way, and nobody complained. You're a gypsy. That's it, I don't want to listen to you anymore. Leave. I love you, sister, and you don't know what life is. You could bring trouble upon yourself. Rosalia threw herself onto the bed and cried. She heard her brother leave the room, firmly closing the door behind him. The next day, Rosalia went to Marta. She understood that her brother had been waiting for her at the gate for a reason her friend must have blabbed. Rosalia wanted to talk to her. As she approached the sprawling lilac bush, she suddenly screamed in fear. Salvador appeared right in front of her. I thought you wouldn't leave the house today. I've been standing here for 2 hours. You scared me, Rosalia exclaimed, clutching her heart. Then she smiled, caressing his handsome face and well-built figure with her gaze. I'm a fool. I didn't even ask for your phone number yesterday. I hope you didn't think I got cold feet. I don't know, the girl looked at him attentively. When I saw you, I immediately knew that I fell in love, he said quickly. That was fast. Have you ever heard of love at first sight? I won't let you go anywhere. Even if they cut me or kill me, I won't give up meeting you. Do you believe me? I don't know, Rosalia said sadly. And you? He persistently sought her gaze. What do you feel for me? Salvador, the girl looked around, we can't stand here for long. Someone might see us and tell father. Let's meet tonight outside the settlement. Do you know the abandoned church? Salvador nodded. Around 7 o'clock. All right. Tell me your number. He wrote down the number and called. And this is mine. If you don't show up, I'll keep calling until you answer. Rosalia lightly kissed his cheek and ran away. Salvador, bewildered but smiling, pressing his palm to the cheek that had just been touched by her lips, stood for a long time, watching her retreating figure. How could you? Rosalia confronted Marta as soon as she entered. How could you tell Gerardo about Salvador and me? And you call yourself a friend? Because that's what friends do, Marta countered, calmly sitting in front of her computer. I don't want you to ruin your family's life. What will people think? I don't understand, Rosalia stared at her in disbelief. Are you against me? Do you want me to marry someone I don't love? I didn't expect this from you. But you understand that you have no chance of changing anything. If you don't marry Fidel, you'll bring shame to the family. And I have a fiancé, you know that. You'll have to comply, it's a gypsy tradition. But I don't want to, Rosalia exclaimed. I love Salvador. You're lucky my brother will be yours as a husband. And what about me? To spend my whole life with someone I don't love? Never. I want to be loved and to love. When did you fall in love with him? You've only just met. Marta sighed. Sometimes all it takes is one look to recognize your love. That's how it happened for us. Get Salvador out of your head, Marta sighed. You won't be together anyway. We'll see about that. Rosalia was devastated, finding no support from her friend. She went home and locked herself in her room. Her heart trembled at the thought of meeting her beloved. At the appointed time, she headed to the abandoned church. Salvador was already waiting. Finally, he rushed to meet her. I thought you wouldn't come. Maybe we shouldn't have started all this, the girl said, doubting. What are you talking about, my dear? Salvador took her face in his hands and looked into her eyes. I can't imagine how I lived without you all this time. I'm glad I met you too, Rosalia confessed. Salvador kissed the girl passionately and then pulled her close to him. I won't let you go, do you hear me? I want to marry you. I'm ready to go to your father and ask for your hand. What are you saying? The girl exclaimed, frightened. He will kill you. Is he an enemy to his own daughter? Doesn't he want your happiness? He does, but he has a different idea of happiness, Rosalia sadly remarked. Salvador spread his jacket on the ground, and the young couple sat side by side, leaning against each other. From that evening on, they started dating and spent every available moment together. Until one day, Blas found out that his daughter had decided to go against his will. Rosalia, Blas cheerfully announced one evening. Tomorrow we're going to visit your fiancé. It's time to start preparing for the wedding. Chus is eager to see you and Fidel married. I won't marry him, Rosalia firmly stated. What? Her father exclaimed angrily. How dare you defy your father? Who asked you? Everything has already been decided long ago. I wanted to wait until you finish school, but apparently we can't delay it any longer to prevent you from doing something foolish. It won't go according to your plan, Rosalia stubbornly insisted. I don't love Fidel. Do you really want to see me unhappy? The only thing I care about is your happiness. Blas erupted. What can your Salvador or whatever his name is offer? Wandering from one rented apartment to another? Living from getting a salary to getting another one? Or do you expect me to provide for you both? Fidel is a grown man, unlike your little boy. He's capable of providing for a family himself. And besides, I told you that marriage allows us to expand the business, to strengthen it. Don't forget, you have a brother too. Do you want to ruin his life as well? Daddy. Rosalia cried, unleashing her powerful weapon of tears. Don't you feel sorry for me? We won't be happy with Fidel. Is money more important to you than my peace of mind? Father, Gerardo spoke as he entered the house, don't give in to her tears. How will you look Chus in the eye if you yield to her? Brother! Rosalia sobbed. How can you push me into the hands of that Fidel? I can see that both of you don't care about me, you only think about money. Foolish girl, we care about the future, Gerardo retorted. How dare you talk to us like that? Her brother angrily exclaimed. No one gave you the right to speak. Have you forgotten who you are? Is it because of our father? Did he spoil you? Is it permissible for a gypsy woman to behave this way? I don't want to see any of you. Rosalia retorted. You are a foolish girl. Salvador will soon leave you and go to the city, and you'll be left here, her brother mocked. Rosalia got up and ran to her room. My sweet, my beloved, she whispered, burying her face in the pillow. I understand that we can't be together. I see it and I know it. But I don't want to be taken by Fidel. I want you to be my first man. Maybe then, when my father finds out that I've given myself to someone else, he'll have pity on us. He will kill me. The girl sat on the bed. Well, so be it. She wiped away her tears. I'd rather die than live with someone I don't love. Let's steal a piece of happiness from fate, and then let things happen as they may. She decisively dialed Salvador's phone number. My love, we need to meet urgently. Let's meet tomorrow at 7 at our spot. The sun was already setting, and the meadow smelled of freshly cut grass. "Rosalia, what's happened?" Salvador rushed to her as soon as he noticed her. She approached him, gazing into his eyes, basking in the tenderness they radiated. Then she asked, "Salvador, do you love me?" "Of course, my little one. I love you very much. Why do you ask?" "Then take me," Rosalia calmly said, never taking her eyes off him. "Are you sure this is the right decision?" Salvador questioned with doubt. "Maybe we shouldn't rush? I'll go to your father, ask him to give you to me in marriage. I want everything to be done properly. No one will allow us to do it properly, but this way, my father will have to accept it." "I see, you've already thought it all through?" "Yes, I've made up my mind. Take me right now." She kissed him on the lips. "I don't want anyone else but you to touch me. Look at how beautiful it is here. Come on, be brave. I can't just start it myself, can I?" Salvador slowly brought his face closer to hers, then gave her a long kiss. They fell into the grass, caressing each other. Salvador was gentle, while Rosalia trembled and melted in his embrace. They didn't notice anything around them, hidden from prying eyes by the tall grass. Yes, no one could see them, only the vast sky witnessed the eternal dance of love between a man and a woman. The tranquility of the sunset was occasionally interrupted by sighs and the sounds of their kisses. "It was so good," Rosalia softly spoke, pressing herself against Salvador's bare chest. "I didn't know it could be so beautiful, my love. I won't give you to anyone else. Can you hear our hearts beating? In sync, side by side. You are my happiness. My life," Salvador expressed. "And life is meaningless without you," Rosalia replied. "What will happen to us now?" Salvador wondered. "It doesn't matter anymore. The important thing is that we are together," Rosalia reassured. "Now only death can separate us," Salvador declared. Rosalia returned home, unaware that her father was already searching for her. "Where have you been, you wretched girl?" Her enraged father glared at her. "I was with Salvador," Rosalia calmly answered, never averting her gaze from her father's eyes. "Did you sleep with him?" her father asked. "I did," the girl replied. "Dad, we love each other." "What have you done?" her father exclaimed. "You've disgraced our family. How can I now look Fidel in the eye? What will I tell Chus?" "You'll tell him the truth." "I can tell him everything myself," Rosalia insisted. "You don't understand what you've done." "Oh, woe is me, what a woe!" Blas lamented, tearing at his hair. "You'll have to accept it, Dad, and marry me to Salvador," Rosalia asserted. "No, absolutely not. I'll lock you up in this house, and you won't leave anymore. I'll come up with something to redeem myself in Fidel's eyes. You will still marry him, old Blas has never broken his word. Give me your phone," he commanded. Rosalia didn't dare to argue. Her father was beside himself with anger over her actions. "Go to your room," he said in a tone that brooked no objections. He pushed her into the room and locked the door from the outside. "Sit there and think," he called out to his elderly mother, Nora. "Take care of her, feed her. No calls, no visitors. I need to figure out what to do next." Nora felt sorry for her granddaughter. She had lived a long life and seen much. "Repent, Rosalia, accept it. Trouble will come if you disobey." The old woman pleaded with her granddaughter. "Your father will forgive you. I can sense it, sorrow awaits us. My heart aches for you, there will be no happiness for you and Salvador." "Have you seen something?" Rosalia asked anxiously. Nora only shook her gray head, mumbling something to herself. Everyone knew that the elderly woman possessed the gift of predicting events, but she rarely used it. "Trouble is coming. Trouble is coming," she repeated, trying to calm the worried heart of her beautiful granddaughter. You won't be happy, the old woman insisted each time she locked Rosalia in the room. Rosalia had often asked her grandmother to bring her the phone so she could call Salvador. But the elderly woman was relentless. Don't seek a meeting with that boy. Forget him, listen to old Nora. I've lived many years in this world, seen much. Suppress your pride. Time passed, and the confined girl grew weary. Her heart longed for her beloved. She didn't know where Salvador was or what had happened to him. She feared seeking a meeting with him would incur her father's wrath. What should I do, Grandma? I love him, do you understand? Life is meaningless without him. I'll have his child, she confessed one day. How can you be so cruel? If your father finds out, he'll kill you. I'd rather die than spend the rest of my life locked up. Nora stared at her for a long time but said nothing. Rosalia attempted to escape from the room several times, but she was closely guarded. Her grandmother kept a strict watch over her. You're not eating well, the elderly woman noticed one day. You need to eat properly now. She brought a tray filled with food and placed it in front of her granddaughter. Eat. I've got too old, Nora grumbled and left the room. Rosalia reluctantly picked at the food her grandmother had brought and suddenly froze. The door to the room was slightly ajar. Disbelieving her eyes, she cautiously peeked into the corridor and listened. Someone was talking to Nora on the ground floor. The girl quickly gathered a few things in a small travel bag, took money and her passport from a hiding place, and quietly tiptoed out of the house. She glanced around constantly, but luckily, there wasn't a soul in the yard or on the street. Rosalia rushed towards Salvador's grandmother. Rosalia? The woman exclaimed in astonishment. Where have you been? Salvador was worrying about you. My father had me locked up. But where is Salvador? Well, he went to the city. It's time for him to work. Can you give me his address? Wait, did you run away from home? The woman worried. They'll search for you. I don't care. I want to meet Salvador as soon as possible. I have something very important to tell him. Please, don't try to dissuade me. When Blas found out that Rosalia had escaped, he was furious. Where were you looking? He snapped at Nora. Why did I leave her under your watch? How could you leave the door open? Did you do it on purpose so she could run off to her lover? Are you in cahoots with her? I've grown old, the grandmother defended herself. I accidentally forgot to close it. I don't remember, someone distracted me, and I didn't close it. Don't be angry. Don't deceive me. I can see right through you. For God's sake, Blas. What are you accusing me of? I'll deal with you later. He promised the old woman. Gerardo, immediately go and search for Rosalia. He ordered his son. Her lover's grandmother lives in our village. Go to her. It's not worth it, Nora calmly looked at him. She's expecting a child. Leave her. It's too late to change anything now. Rosalia has chosen her own fate. A child? What child? Where does she have a child from? What are you talking about? My daughter has brought shame to our family? God has turned away from me. Woe is me, what a woe. What will I tell Chus? I, Blas, have never broken my word in my life. And now my own daughter has shattered our plans into pieces. What should I do? Blas was beside himself with anger. Do you understand that Fidel will never marry her now? Talk to him, Nora advised. He will understand. Why go against fate? Leave Rosalia be, maybe she can find happiness. She said they love each other. Don't you know the laws of the gypsies? I must fulfill my duty, otherwise. Blas went to meet Fidel. Son, he began from a distance, I have bad news for you. What happened, Uncle Blas? My daughter, my Rosalia, she disobeyed my orders and ran away with her lover. Well, it's not too late to bring her back, Fidel reasoned. Let Gerardo go after her, and you can punish her properly. I don't know how to tell you, the man hesitated. She is pregnant from that scoundrel. Forgive me, Fidel, I promised you an obedient and pure daughter. She disobeyed her father's will, violated the gypsy laws. I don't want you to harbor false hopes of marrying her. There will be no wedding. Find yourself a more deserving wife than my daughter. She is not worthy of your love. How could this happen, Uncle Blas? I waited for her all these years. How could she destroy everything in one day? I know, Fidel, it's my fault. I spoiled her, didn't notice when she felt her own will. I raised her alone, always regretting that she grew up without a mother. And now she hasn't repaid me the favor. What are you going to do? Do you know where this guy lives? He must be punished. His grandmother lives here in the village. They're probably hiding in the city. I doubt they're still with his grandmother. I will curse them. God will punish them. God will judge everyone in the afterlife, but in this life, we will pass our own gypsy judgment. I don't intend to wait for mercy from God. I will find them and punish them myself. Fidel, don't touch them, let them go in peace, the old man pleaded. They have disgraced me. The young man said harshly. Your daughter and that guy have violated the gypsy law. I must seek revenge. If I don't do it, all the gypsies will laugh at me and spit in my face. Don't touch Rosalia, Blas pleaded, looking at him imploringly. She's a fool. Ask for anything you want, just don't touch them, don't take the sin upon yourself. Don't ruin her, she's carrying my grandchild. She should have been carrying my son. Fidel replied sharply and turned away. Rosalia timidly pressed the doorbell. Footsteps could be heard behind the door. The lock clicked and the door swung open. Rosalia? Salvador exclaimed in astonishment. Where have you been? Are you going to invite me in, or will you keep me on the doorstep? The young woman smiled. Of course, come in. I didn't expect you to come. Where have you been? I called, but your phone was off all the time. I was about to come to your house, but Grandma dissuaded me. Well, it's a good thing you didn't do that, the girl said wearily. My father decided to separate us and lock me up, but I escaped. Will they search for you now? Of course, they will, but when they find us, they won't be able to do anything anymore. My father will have to marry us. You speak in riddles. Oh, you must be hungry. And you don't look great after the journey. Let's go, I'll feed you. Do you live here alone? Rosalia looked around the apartment with interest. Yes, my parents work abroad. That's good, she stood in front of the young man. I have something important to tell you. Our fate depends on your answer. Smiling, Salvador looked at her. Love shone in his eyes. I'm so glad you came to me. Salvador, we're going to have a baby. Are you serious? A baby? He lifted Rosalia in his arms, twirling her around the room, repeating. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby. You're crazy. The girl laughed. Put me down immediately. Sorry, he looked at her apologetically and put her back on her feet. Now I have to treat you like you're the rarest jewelry. And I was afraid you wouldn't accept me. What? Silly girl. The young man embraced her. I won't let you go anywhere now. Soon, there will be 3 of us. He got down on his knees in front of her, pressing his cheek against her belly. I can't believe our little one is growing in there. I love you, the young woman said. And I love you too. I love our future child. How happy we are together. The lovers cherished each day waiting for the birth. Salvador tenderly cared for Rosalia, looked after her, and tried not to leave her alone for long. There were 2 weeks left until the delivery. How can I pamper my beloved today? The young woman cheerfully muttered, peering into the fridge. I think I'll make chicken and batter. Oh, she said regretfully. But I don't have any flour. I'll have to go to the store. It's fine, I'll make it in time. Rosalia returned home with her shopping, feeling content. She turned into her alley and saw Salvador. Salvador! She called out happily. Salvador turned at her cry, waved his hand, and started walking back. Suddenly, the young woman noticed two figures cautiously looking around, catching up to Salvador and attacking him. Help! She screamed, rushing towards the assailants. In the dim light of the lamppost, a knife glinted. For a moment, one of the attackers' faces emerged from the darkness, and Rosalia screamed in horror once again. Help! Salvador slumped, and the men fled. Salvador! The woman fell to her knees before him, blood pooling beside his lifeless body. Ah! Rosalia screamed wildly, raising her head towards the sky. Oh Lord, if you exist, save him, I'm begging you. Don't let him perish. People rushed towards her from all directions. Someone shouted, "Call an ambulance." It won't help, dryly remarked someone from the gathered crowd. The woman stood up, swaying, and headed towards home. Like a madwoman, she stared ahead, seeing nothing. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through her entire body. Ah! Rosalia screamed again, bending over in agony. Something trickled down the inside of her legs. My water broke. My baby! Echoed in her mind. Ma'am, do you need help? She heard someone ask. Yes. Is the maternity hospital far? No, I'll take you there. The stranger firmly grabbed her arm and led her somewhere. Here, the admission ward, she pointed to a bright sign. Can you manage from here? Yes, thank you, Rosalia struggled to say and made her way to the admission department. Any news? Old Bloss looked hopefully at his friend. No, my dear, he shrugged. 20 years have passed, it's been so long. No trace of Rosalia. If we couldn't find her on hot pursuit, there's hardly any hope now. You're asking the impossible of me. But she couldn't disappear without a trace, especially with a child. No one has seen her since the day she ran away to Salvador. Don't remind me of his name. He's responsible for our misfortune. The man frowned. I implore you, by all that is holy, find my daughter and her child. I won't spare any expense. You know, Bloss, I'll do whatever you want for you. I'll try to help. Even if there's only a slim chance of finding her. We know nothing about them. They might have changed their names to evade pursuit, that's why we can't find them. I implore all the saints. Don't let me leave this world without seeing my daughter. The unknown has tormented me for many years. I can't eat or sleep, my heart aches for her. Search, I beg you, don't stop looking. His friend nodded, bid farewell to the man, and left. Daughter. Eleonora peeked into Saturnina's room. Get up, lazybones, you'll be late for college. Mom. Just another minute, and I'll get up. Get up, or you'll miss breakfast again. The woman approached her daughter, bent down, and kissed her cheek. If you hurry, Dad will give you a ride to college. Hooray! The girl opened her black eyes wide. In 15 minutes, I'll be ready. She jumped up, hugged her mother, and tossed back her mane of dark wavy hair. Don't rush, Eleonora calmly said. You still have some time. Okay, Saturnina hurriedly got up from the table. Thank you, Mom. She pecked her mother on the cheek. See you in the evening. If you're running late, call me so I won't worry. Her mother called after her. Okay. I love you. The girl blew her mother an air kiss and ran off. Eleonora smiled, she adored her daughter. A flock of students spilled out of the doors of the medical institute. Saturnina, are you in a hurry? Her friend asked. I promised my mom not to linger. Let's take a stroll in the park then. It's on the way. Hey, beautiful ladies. A gypsy woman appeared as if from underground in front of the friends. Would you like me to tell your fortunes? We don't believe in fortune telling, the girls laughed. Give me your hand, the gypsy woman addressed Saturnina. She stared at her with fiery eyes, as if hypnotizing her. Don't be stingy, give a little something for the children's bread, and I will tell you the whole truth. I won't hide anything, my beauty. I have a keen eye. I see a hidden seal on your destiny. Saturnina, go ahead. Maybe she'll predict a good fiancé for you? Her friends urged. Oh, come on. It's all nonsense. The girl tossed back her dark wavy hair. Saturnina, don't refuse. Her friends encouraged. If she tells you the truth, we'll also have our fortunes told. She chose you herself. Fine, the girl surrendered, flashing her blue eyes. Here you go. Saturnina winked at her friends and handed the woman a banknote. Let's see what you have to say about me. The girls exchanged glances and stood frozen in anticipation. The gypsy woman frowned as she examined Saturnina's hand. Gypsy blood flows within you. She lifted her head and scrutinized the girl's face intently. Although you are not a gypsy woman by your side. Saturnina looked at her in astonishment. How did you come to that conclusion? I see everything, I know everything. The fortune teller rambled. Your mother is a gypsy. Girls, why do we need to study at the institute? Saturnina sarcastically remarked. Apparently, everything can be read from the hand. We're studying medical genetics, but here we can determine someone's ethnicity just by looking at their hand. The friends burst into laughter. Saturnina pretended to sigh. Maybe you can also diagnose illnesses by looking at the hand? No. But I can tell you many things you don't know and never suspected, the fortune teller replied. Too bad, the girl sighed in jest. We don't possess such a gift. But wouldn't you like to give us a palm reading masterclass? It's trendy these days. There's no need to teach you. The gift of clairvoyance is passed down through the maternal line in your family, the gypsy woman responded seriously. You just don't know it yet. But the time will come, and much will be revealed to you. Well, that's hilarious. I'll come home and ask my mom why she didn't tell me about the gift that was passed down from her. Saturnina laughed. You won't be able to do it. Because your mother died right after giving birth, and the woman you call your mother is your adoptive mother. That's enough. The girl snatched her hand away from the gypsies. Stop talking nonsense. My mom is waiting for me at home. Everything you've said is complete rubbish. I don't want to listen to you anymore. Deceive the gullible citizens, but we understand perfectly well. Right, girls? You're just a common fraud. It was obvious from the start that all your words were deceit. Girls, she turned to her friends, I told you from the beginning that fortune-telling is nonsense. Just a way to extract money. Let's go. She bent down to fix the untied shoelace on her sneakers, and when she stood up, a pendant fell out of the blouse's neckline. Saturnina wore it constantly without taking it off. Where did you get that? The elderly gypsy woman turned pale, seeing the pendant around the girl's neck. I don't know, shrugged Saturnina. My mom said it was passed down to me as an inheritance. She told me to always wear it as a talisman. Let's go, girls. The girls, chatting and laughing, continued down the path. Meanwhile, the gypsy woman stood and watched them, shielding her eyes from the sun with her hand like a visor. Bloss. Lola hurried into the house. You can kick me out right now, but first listen to me. You won't believe who I met in town. She exclaimed excitedly. Your granddaughter. Lola, have you gone mad? Old Bloss calmly asked. Perhaps you're imagining things? The best detectives couldn't find a trace of Rosalia, and you claim to have met your granddaughter? Yes, I'm telling the truth. 2 days ago, I went to town to earn some money, and I met a girl. And she was wearing the pendant belonging to your Rosalia. Is it the same pendant? The man stood up abruptly. Are you sure? Look, if you're trying to deceive me, I'll bring a curse upon your whole family. No, I saw it as clearly as I see you now. I swear on the health of my children and grandchildren. I couldn't have been mistaken. It was too conspicuous. Where did you see her? In the park. I offered her a fortune-telling, and our gypsy blood runs in her. She also has a gift that she doesn't know about and doesn't know how to use. But you can't fool Lola. I can read her like a book just by holding her hand. Did you ask where she lives? No, they took me for a fraud. Imagine what they would have done to me if I started asking for her address. How are we going to find her in the city? We don't know her name or surname. Her friends called her Saturnina. She mentioned something about a medical college. That's where we should look. There's only one medical college in the city. Oh, Lola, let me kiss you. The old gypsy hugged the woman and kissed her forehead. You've given me hope. Come to the kitchen. I want you to have a meal with us. I'll just call my friend to start the search for my granddaughter. Bloss dialed a phone number. Marcelo, come over urgently. I have information about my granddaughter. We need to check it as soon as possible. Where did you get the information? Half an hour later, the men were talking in Bloss' office. Lola accidentally met her in town. We have a name, a rare one, by the way. And we know she's studying medicine. I don't think it'll be too difficult for you to find her. Leave immediately, don't waste a minute. Find out everything you can about her. I want to hold my daughter Rosalia's child in my arms as soon as possible. A week later, Marcelo brought Bloss a full report. Here's your granddaughter. She's the real beauty. Just like her grandfather. The man placed a photo of Saturnina in front of Bloss. Her name is Saturnina, and she's indeed a student. What did you find out about her? The elderly gypsy carefully examined the girl in the photo, trying to recognize his daughter's features. She's being raised by an adoptive family, and her mother is a midwife. Perhaps she was the one who assisted Rosalia during childbirth. And where? Bloss stumbled and looked questioningly at his friend. Unfortunately, Rosalia passed away immediately after giving birth. Bloss clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. This woman adopted your granddaughter. The family loves her very much. She's lucky, they treat her as their own. She graduated from school with honors and is now studying at a medical institute, dreaming of becoming a doctor like her adoptive mother. She knows nothing about her biological parents. Do you still want to meet her? She's an adult, she grew up with different customs. And what if she refuses to talk to you? I need to meet her. I lost my daughter. I want at least my granddaughter to be with me when the time comes to close my eyes forever. And I need to meet that woman. I want to thank her and find out what she knows about Rosalia. Perhaps we can shed light on the story that happened 20 years ago. Don't dissuade me. Help me instead. Bloss waited in the car parked near the college. How will we recognize her in such a crowd? The old gypsy anxiously scanned the groups of students who constantly entered and exited through the main entrance. It won't be difficult, Marcelo smiled. She has an unusual appearance. There she is. Marcelo pointed at a girl. I see her. The old gypsy, nervous about the impending meeting, got out of the car. I'll come with you. You'll need support. No, I'll go alone. I don't need intermediaries here. And you leave, wait for me at the gas station. I need to talk to her one-on-one. Bloss approached Saturnina. She looked at the elderly, gray-haired man with confusion. Hello, Bloss said. His eyes filled with tears. The girl resembled his daughter, her mother, very much. Only her eyes were blue, but the gaze. The old gypsy became agitated, his legs trembled, and his heart ached. Bloss wanted to say something, but he couldn't. He suddenly turned pale and clutched his chest. Oh my God! Saturnina compassionately took the man's arm and sat him down on a bench. Are you okay? I'll call an ambulance right away. She quickly dialed the necessary number. Hurry, The person is feeling unwell here. Passers-by helped Saturnina lay the old gypsy on the bench. Someone placed a bag under his head. Can I go with him? Saturnina asked when they had already placed Bloss in the car. Are you a relative? No, but I called the ambulance. I'm a student, a future doctor. All right, let's go quickly. Saturnina decided to wait until the man regained consciousness. Bloss slowly opened his eyes. Finally, you're awake. Saturnina exclaimed happily, jumping up from her chair. You really scared me. You didn't leave? You didn't abandon me? I was afraid I had lost you again. No, I called the ambulance right away. They said nothing serious happened. You just got too worried and your blood pressure went up. Now the worst is behind us. Take care of yourself. Shall I call your family? They must be worried. Thank you for not leaving me to die. How could I? After all, I'm a future doctor. Are you Saturnina? Yes, the girl was surprised. How do you know my name? I'm Bloss, your grandfather. That can't be. My mother never told me I had a grandfather. You must be confused. Did you lose consciousness because of that? Were you mistaken for someone's granddaughter? Show me the pendant, the gypsy asked without listening to her, the one you wear on your chest. You even know about the pendant? Saturnina was even more surprised. She took out the pendant and showed it to Bloss. My mother gave it to me. I don't even remember when I first wore it. It seems like it's been with me since birth. This pendant is ancient, passed down through the maternal line, just like the gift of foreseeing the future. My wife, your grandmother, put it around your mother's neck. She passed away long ago, and now the pendant has come to you. Gypsy blood runs in your veins, so you rightfully wear it. This is nonsense. My mother is not a gypsy, and there have never been any gypsies in our family. Let me call a nurse. You're out of your mind. Don't think that I'm mistaken. It's a long story. Of course, I can't know everything. It's better if Eleonora tells you the whole truth. I'm sorry that you only found out now, but I truly am your grandfather. I searched for your mother, my daughter, for many years. Believe me, I'm not crazy. It sounds like a Mexican soap opera. I'm the daughter of a gypsy. Saturnina snorted, ready to burst into laughter. Everything you're saying can't be true. Are you pranking me? I understand that it's difficult to believe what I'm saying, but look at yourself in the mirror. You're a true gypsy, just not by your father's blood. I'll explain everything to you if you want. But it's best to ask your mother. Let her explain first. I don't want you to think I'm a liar. Do you still not believe me? I need to make a call, Saturnina suddenly realized. My mom must be worried. I should have been home a long time ago. She left the room and dialed her mother's number. Mommy. Saturnina, my daughter, where are you? I'm worried, and you haven't called. Where have you gone? The classes ended a long time ago. I'm at the hospital. What? Eleonora became concerned. Why are you at the hospital? What happened? Why didn't you tell me immediately? She bombarded her daughter with questions. Which hospital are you in? No, Mom, I'm fine. Something happened to an old grandfather on the street, and I called an ambulance and went with him because he was all alone. I stayed to support him. I see, her mother sighed in relief. I got scared for a moment. Is everything okay now? He's fine now, Saturnina paused. Mommy, this man claims to be my grandfather. And he's a gypsy. Can you imagine? I'm trying to prove him wrong, but he insists that I have gypsy blood. It's ridiculous. He must be mistaken, right? Saturnina hoped her mother would be outraged and dismiss it as a prank, that such a thing couldn't be true. And then they would laugh together at this old gypsy man. But her mother remained silent. Mom, are you there? The girl asked, feeling an inexplicable sense of worry creeping into her heart. Why are you keeping silent? It's not true, right, Mom? Where? Eleonora was taken aback, caught off guard. She frantically tried to find the right words. Where have you met this grandfather? Did he tell you something? Mom, he insists that I have gypsy roots and that you're my adoptive mother. I don't understand anything. Can you explain what all this means? Why didn't you answer my question? Is there something you don't want to tell me? Your silence is scaring me. You're right, I need to explain everything. Tell me the address of the hospital, I'll come right now. Saturnina grew restless while waiting for her mother. Mom. She rushed to meet her as soon as she spotted her in the hospital corridor. Grandpa has gotten everything mixed up. You said that your parents died a long time ago. Where is he? Eleonora asked briefly. Here, the girl pointed to the room with her hand. Mommy. Tears welled up in her eyes as she anxiously searched her mother's gaze. It's all not true, right? I'm your biological daughter? The woman took her daughter by the shoulders, turned her towards herself. She looked carefully into her eyes for a few moments, then spoke firmly. Let's go. They entered the room. Bloss turned his gray head, casting a cautious, piercing gaze at the visitors with his dark, lively eyes. Hello. Eleonora cautiously sat on a chair next to the old gypsy's bed and placed the travel bag she had once left in Rosalia's guest room on the floor. Are you Rosalia's father? Yes, I am her father. My name is Bloss. How did you get Rosalia's pendant? Saturnina, the woman looked at her daughter, who shifted her gaze between the old man and her worried mother. You sit down too, we have a long conversation ahead. This is not how I imagined our talk, but it's too late to turn back now. Secrets always become known. It's time to confess and clarify some aspects of our lives. My girl. She took her hand. This man is telling the truth. He really is your grandfather, and I adopted you. I did it when your biological mother, the gypsy Rosalia, passed away. I promised her that I wouldn't abandon her little girl. I have never regretted for a single moment that I didn't allow you to live in an orphanage. You became my most beloved and cherished daughter. I have no regrets except for one thing, that you didn't hear the truth from me first. The woman heard the old gypsy grinding his teeth. Why did she die? He asked. She went into premature labor when she saw her beloved man being killed. She had to endure such stress. The childbirth was difficult. Everything piled up on her, perhaps even the grief over the deceased. She couldn't cope with the emotions and died. We couldn't do anything. I'm sorry. You're saying Salvador was killed? And she saw who did it. Did she see the killer? She did. Did she mention a name? She left a letter, which he turned to his daughter, would have given to you. I was just waiting for the right moment. It's all written in detail there. Read it now, please. Why are you dragging it out? Bloss shouted. My dear little daughter. Eleonora began reading. When you read this letter, I won't be in this world anymore, but you won't be alone. You have your Grandpa Bloss and Uncle Gerardo. Unfortunately, fate has decided that neither your father nor I would get to see you grow up. I knew this would happen. Women in our lineage have the gift of foresight. But the love for your father was stronger than the fear of death. I ran away from my parents' house to spend a few happy months with my Salvador, your father, waiting for your birth. I didn't want to obey my father's will and marry Fidel, who was chosen for me as a husband. I didn't love him and didn't want to spend the rest of my days with a heartless husband. When you grow up, my beloved little daughter, you will understand that I had no other choice. I'm sure that if it weren't for what happened, Father would have forgiven me and accepted Salvador into the family, surrounding you with care and warmth. In the silence of the room, someone started to sob. Eleonora stopped reading and looked at Bloss. The old man lay on his back, covering his eyes with his hand. His fingers were clenched into a fist, and a solitary tear rolled down his cheek. But Fidel didn't want to accept it. He chose revenge. Fidel? Blas asked sharply. You said Fidel? Look carefully, is there no mistake? Yes, Fidel. The person who was present throughout my childhood, Eleonora, continued reading, refused to understand me. And not because he had great love, but because our marriage would allow him to become the gatekeeper of a large business after the union of two families. Only the desire to enrich himself motivated him, and nothing else. He, of course, couldn't forgive Salvador for that. The hot gypsy blood demanded revenge. I'm sure Father wouldn't have allowed anyone to harm us. Fidel made the decision himself. I don't know how he managed to find us, as no living soul knew that we were living in Salvador's parents' apartment. He chose the very moment when there was very little time left until the birth, ambushed your father, and killed him in front of my eyes. And then, like a coward, he fled. But I saw his face. I knew exactly who wanted Salvador's death. The worst part is that Fidel knew that I knew the killer. If it weren't for the people who came to help at that moment, he would have killed me too, to silence me forever. I was very scared for you. He could have harmed you too. Revenge is a poor advisor. To protect you, my little daughter, I persuaded the midwife who delivered my baby to take you away. She is a good person, and I'm sure she will become a kind mother to you. No one would have thought to look for a newborn gypsy girl near her. If you are reading this letter now and wearing the pendant, the sacred talisman of our ancient lineage, it means that everything happened as the gift of foresight guided me. Oh, how I would love to see you. To see what a beauty my daughter has become. But fate had other plans. I know the day will come when you meet your grandfather Blas and your uncle Gerardo. Don't blame them for what happened. I'm sure they will love you, and you will love them. Be happy, my little girl, and sometimes remember your parents. Eleonora fell silent. Saturnina cried quietly, wiping her tears with a handkerchief. The old gypsy clenched his teeth, trying not to show his emotions, so as not to be seen as weak by those around him. Are you sure? Blas broke the prolonged silence. That Rosalia wrote this? They gave me the letter right after her death. The nurse said your daughter wrote it shortly before her passing. Look, is this her handwriting? She handed the sheet, filled with small, uneven handwriting, to the old man. Yes, Blas said, examining the writing. This is my daughter's handwriting. Fidel, why did you commit this crime? You've ruined 2 lives. And for what? He clenched his teeth tightly, grinding them in anger. Now that you know about Saturnina, is she in danger from Rosalia's jilted suitor? Do we have to leave to keep the girl safe? Will Fidel come looking for her if he finds out where she lives? You have nothing to fear. Fidel died 2 years after my daughter's disappearance. God punished him for his crime. I considered him my son, but he took away my daughter and granddaughter. He died? Yes, he got involved with the gangsters. During a fight, he was shot dead. So you can live peacefully, he can no longer harm you. Eleonora, Blas, and Saturnina sat there, unsure of what to do next. Blas, will you take Saturnina away from me? The woman timidly spoke. Now that everything is clear, does she need to return to the family? Is that why you found us? It's up to Saturnina to decide. She's grown up now. I would be glad to welcome her into the family because she's the only thing I have left of my daughter, the gray-haired gypsy said, squinting his elderly eyes, affectionately gazing at his granddaughter. I am deeply sorry, dear. I have regretted many times that I haven't accepted my daughter's choice. I was young and hot-headed, unwilling to tolerate even a hint of disobedience. If I had tamed my pride back then and listened to my daughter, she would still be alive. But I couldn't act differently. He closed his eyes again, covering them with his hand, clenching the sheet in his fist. I was accustomed to living by gypsy laws, but my daughter, Rosalia, chose a different path. She didn't want to endure violence against her will and ran away. Saturnina, he looked at the girl, you are beautiful because your parents conceived you out of great pure love. I know for certain that Rosalia loved your father, as she didn't hesitate to defy her family. She abandoned us for him. I offer you everything I have. Our family is very wealthy. I would be delighted if you decide to come with me. But I don't want to change anything in my life, the girl firmly said. I'm content with everything. My mom and dad are here, and I love them very much. My dear daughter, tears appeared in Eleanora's eyes. I was so afraid that you would hate me when you found out that we are not your biological parents. I did my best to hide the truth, feeling I've wronged you. But I thought it was better for everyone. Mama, Saturnina looked at her, you are my real parents. How could I ever hate you when you, knowing that I was in mortal danger, still adopted me? You saved me, risking your own and Papa's lives. I'm grateful for what I have now. There simply couldn't be better parents. I couldn't have acted differently. After all, I promised Rosalia in her final moments that I would take care of you. You are a brave and kind woman, Bloss said. The doors of my home are always open to you. Come, all of you, to us. I will show you the stud farm that belonged to our family. In recent years, I've been breeding purebred horses and selling them. It's a good business that brings in a lot of money. And all that wealth will belong to you, Saturnina. You are the heir of our lineage. Your uncle Gerardo is managing well, but he needs assistance. Thank you, the girl blushed, but I don't need anything. I'm used to achieving everything in life on my own. That's how my parents raised me. How much you resemble your mother, Bloss said sadly. Just as stubborn and free-spirited. At that moment, a nurse entered the room. Why are you tormenting the patient? She scolded, setting up the dropper. He needs rest, and any strong emotions are completely contraindicated. Oh, beauty. I've lived so many years on this earth that God has probably forgotten about me. But I'm not planning to die now. I'll ask him to live a little bit more. I found my granddaughter, you know? I've been searching for 20 years. I want to see her get married, and if I have time, I'll spoil my great-grandchildren too. That's enough, everyone, go home. The nurse ordered. Don't you see his condition? He's barely recovered from the shock. Do you want another strike to happen? Goodbye, Bloss, Eleanora shook the old gypsy's hand. Goodbye, Saturnina stumbled, then added, grandfather. Thank you, Saturnina. Those are the best words I've ever heard. He teared up. The women left. Bloss lay there, smiling at his thoughts. Rest if you really want to live long enough for great-grandchildren. By the way, your friend called. He was very worried about your health. Oh, I'm an old fool. Bloss scolded himself. I completely forgot about Marcelo. He probably couldn't wait for me and left. I told him to go home, so don't worry. He will inform your son that you're in the hospital. How much longer do I have to lie here? You'll stay with us today, and if all the indicators are normal tomorrow, we'll discharge you. We'll let your son know to come. And don't worry so much. The nurse laughed. Everything will be fine. The next day, Gerardo arrived. Hello, father. He hugged Bloss, who had been waiting for his son on a bench in the hospital garden. Marcelo told me that Rosalia's daughter has been found. Is it true? It's true, the man gruffly replied. And I also found out who is responsible for your sister's death. It's Fidel. Fidel? It can't be. He loved her with his whole heart. Yes, but he didn't listen to me, decided to seek revenge, and killed Salvador. Rosalia witnessed it and died during childbirth. To protect the child from Fidel's wrath, she gave her up for adoption. That's why we couldn't trace her whereabouts at all. I never thought Fidel could kill out of revenge. It's a shame that Fidel is dead. Gerardo gritted his teeth. I swear by the memory of our ancestors, I wouldn't have forgiven him for my sister's death. And what about my niece? Why didn't you bring her with you? She may not be pure-blooded, but she's a gypsy. I want to meet her. She left with her adoptive mother. She needs time to think about everything. Imagine finding out that strangers raised you for so many years. But she's been handling it well. I wish she could come with me right now, but I didn't insist. The important thing is that we found her. She'll gradually get used to us, come visit, and finally, we'll gather as a family. Let's go home. I have a lot to tell you. The old gypsy returned home, but a week later, a new episode put him back in bed. Father, Gerardo said worriedly, looking at Blas' pale face. You need to go to the hospital. It's not a joke that you have problems with your blood pressure. The doctors can't do anything, Blas replied, breathing heavily. It's the damned old age. Nothing can be done about it. They haven't invented a cure for it yet. I've lived a good, long life. I won't be ashamed to face the Almighty. There's one thing I regret, that I don't have the chance to see my granddaughter again. He fell silent. Go see her. Maybe you can convince her to come and live with us. And ask her for forgiveness on our behalf. Oh, how I wish I could turn back time. All right, Father, I promise. I'll do as you ask. I'm also eager to meet her. A few days later, Blas passed away. The funeral was lavish, as is customary among the gypsies. Immediately after the memorial, Gerardo went to Eleonora's house. Mom, I'll open the door. Saturnina called out when she heard the insistent doorbell. Oh, hello. Standing at the door was a middle-aged man with a gypsy appearance. He looked at the girl with interest. And who are you here to see? Probably I'm here to see you, if you're Saturnina, Gerardo calmly replied. Yes, I am Saturnina. And who are you? I'm your Uncle Gerardo. Something happened to Grandpa, didn't it? The girl immediately understood. My dear. The mother's voice came from the hallway. Why are you not inviting the guest in? What will he think of you? Please come in. Blas sent you, I assume. How is he doing? Father passed away, the man said briefly, walking into the living room. He asked me to inform you. He also asked for your forgiveness. There's nothing for me to forgive him for, Saturnina sadly replied. I probably won't interrupt you. You need to talk, Eleonora hurriedly said. Besides, it's my shift. Gerardo, come visit us, Saturnina will be glad. She left, leaving her daughter with her uncle. The woman's heart ached with fear that Saturnina would leave to live with the gypsies. Although she remembered their conversation when they left the hospital with Blas. She had asked her daughter directly, Are you going to go live with them now? They're your real family. You know, it will hurt me, but I'll understand. No, Mom, my real family is you and Dad. I have no intention of leaving you. But there's your grandfather, your uncle there. I don't know them at all, and I want to stay with you. Eleonora stopped then, hugged her daughter tightly. Thank you, my dear, for not being swayed by the wealth of the family. Mom, I will never abandon you, and I'm grateful that you didn't give me up to an orphanage. That's something I'll never forget. I've never once felt like I am adopted. If it hadn't been for the chance encounter with that gypsy woman in the park, everything would have remained as it is. You know, I think you should get to know them better. I won't object if you visit them occasionally. You're the best mom. The girl fervently hugged Eleonora. And now, Eleonora, rushing to work, repeatedly reassured Saturnina that she wouldn't leave them. But her heart was heavy. Saturnina, Gerardo spoke up when the door closed behind Eleonora. I would love for you to come to us and see how we live. You have a lot of relatives, they're all waiting to meet you. I promise I'll come, but don't wait the impossible things from me. I won't leave my parents. Isn't that what children do among the gypsies? Gerardo laughed and shook his head. You resemble your mother a lot, except your eyes are blue and your hair has a chocolate hue. But my sister's character was free and independent. I'm glad you came into our lives. And Blas departed with a peaceful soul. He was deeply worried that he couldn't find Rosalia. He spent so much energy searching for her, and that's what compromised his health. I understand that rushing things isn't necessary. Time will arrange everything in its place. But know that the doors of my home are always open to you. You can come there anytime or ask for help. Just never forget gypsy blood runs through you.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.